The Great Hall on Kepler Prime buzzed with worried voices as alien representatives filled their seats. Admiral Zix Thara's reptilian scales shifted from green to deep red as she watched the gathered crowd. Her people had called this emergency meeting because of one simple problem that was growing bigger each day. Humans were spreading across the galaxy too fast, and no one knew how to stop them. Ambassador Velnara floated above her crystal seat, with her body glowing soft blue. Her species had lived in space for thousands of years, but even they were surprised by how quickly humans moved from star to star. She looked at the data pad floating before her eyes and shook her head. In just 50 years, humans had built colonies on over 300 worlds. Most alien species took centuries to do the same thing. Dr. Kira Lin clicked her mandibles together as she spoke to the crowd. Her insect-like body stood tall behind the speaking platform as hundreds of compound eyes looked at each council member. She had studied human behavior for 20 years, and what she found scared her. Humans did not follow the same rules as other species. They took risks that should have killed them, but somehow they survived and grew stronger. The massive screen at the front of the hall showed a map of human space. Red dots marked human colonies and outposts. Blue lines showed their trade routes. Yellow triangles showed their military bases. What worried everyone the most were the green squares that marked their fleet positions. Admiral Zixathera pointed at the screen with her clawed hand and spoke in her deep voice. "Look at this data from last week. Human ships were here near the Centauri cluster. Now they are here by the Vega Nebula. That is a distance of 40 light-years covered in 7 days. Our fastest ships take 3 weeks to make the same journey. How are they moving so quickly?" Ambassador Velnara's glow shifted to purple as she became more concerned. "My scouts report that humans are using some kind of new engine technology. Their ships leave strange energy traces that our sensors cannot identify. We tried to follow one of their cargo vessels, but it simply vanished from our tracking systems." Commander Zeftak's crystalline body chimed as he moved to the center of the room. His species was made of living crystal, and they could process information faster than most organic minds. He had been studying human expansion patterns for months, and his findings worried him deeply. "The humans are not expanding randomly. They follow a specific pattern that suggests they know something we do not. They choose worlds that are rich in rare minerals, especially those that can be used to build advanced technology. They also seem to know which star systems are safe to travel through, even when our own maps show dangerous radiation zones." Dr. Kira Lin's antennae twitched as she accessed her data files through her mental link. "I have been monitoring human communications for the past year. They speak often of something called Operation Starfall. My translation programs cannot determine what this operation involves, but human military officers mention it with great excitement and secrecy." The council chamber fell silent as everyone considered this information. Admiral Zixathara's scales turned almost black as her anger grew. Her species had ruled this part of the galaxy for 500 years, and she did not like the idea of humans challenging their authority. "We must act before they become too powerful. I propose we send them an ultimatum. Either they stop their expansion, or we will use military force to contain them within their current borders." As the Admiral spoke these words, something strange happened to all the sensor displays in the room. Every screen that showed human fleet positions began to flicker. The red dots that marked human ships started to fade and disappear one by one. Ambassador Velnara's glow turned white with shock as she watched the displays. "What is happening to our sensors? Are the humans jamming our equipment?" Dr. Kira Lin's compound eyes focused on the main display as she ran diagnostic programs through her neural interface. "All sensor arrays are working correctly. The signals are not being jammed. The human ships are actually disappearing from space." Commander Zeftak's crystal body resonated with a high-pitched sound that meant he was processing information at maximum speed. "I am receiving reports from observation posts across 12 star systems. All human military vessels have vanished simultaneously. No energy signatures, no debris fields, no distress signals. Over 2,000 ships, including their largest battle cruisers, have simply ceased to exist." The council chamber erupted in confused voices as representatives tried to understand what they were witnessing. Admiral Zixathera stood up from her seat, and her scales turned pale yellow with disbelief. In all her years of military service, she had never seen an entire fleet disappear without any trace. Ambassador Velnera activated the emergency communication system and tried to contact the human embassy on Kepler Prime. The communication channel, connected but only static, came through the speakers. She tried to reach human colonies and research stations, but found the same result. All human military communications had gone silent at exactly the same moment. The last message anyone had received from the human fleet came from Captain Amy Foster at Earth Fleet Command just minutes before the disappearance. Her voice had been calm and confident as she spoke to her ships. "All vessels, this is Fleet Command. Operation Starfall is a go. Remember, we do this for Earth, for humanity's future among the stars. May fortune favor the bold." Dr. Kira Lin played the recording 3 times as the council listened in stunned silence. The human captain's words suggested that whatever happened to the fleet was planned and deliberate. But no known technology could make over 2,000 ships vanish from space without leaving any evidence behind. As the hours passed, more reports came in from across the galaxy. Human ships at remote outposts had also disappeared. Trade vessels, cargo haulers, and even small scout ships were gone. The only human presence left in space were their colonies and research stations, and even those had gone silent on all communication channels. Admiral Zix Thara looked at the empty star map where human fleet positions used to be marked. Her military mind tried to find logical explanations, but none of them made sense. Either humans had developed technology far beyond anything the Council knew about, or something terrible had happened to them. The meeting that was supposed to discuss limiting human expansion had become an investigation into the greatest mystery the galaxy had ever seen. Where had Earth's fleet gone, and why did they vanish without a trace, leaving the most powerful alien species in the galaxy completely stunned? 3 days after the human fleet disappeared, Admiral Zix Thara led the largest investigation force the Galactic Council had ever assembled. 200 ships from 8 different species moved through human space looking for answers. What they found was even more disturbing than the missing fleet. Commander Zeftok's crystal body hummed with nervous energy as his team entered the first human colony. New Terra had been home to 50,000 humans just a week ago. Now the streets were empty, but nothing had been destroyed. Houses stood with their doors open, and meals sat half-eaten on dining tables. Children's toys lay scattered in playgrounds, where no children played. Lieutenant Maya Collins was the first human they found who was still alive. She sat alone in the communication center of a deep space research station, trying to send messages to ships that no longer existed. Her hands shook as she typed the same message over and over. "Fleet Command, please respond. Station Echo 7, requesting immediate assistance. Where is everyone?" When the alien investigation team found her, Maya looked up with tears in her eyes. She had been alone for 3 days, with no word from any other human in the galaxy. Her voice was barely a whisper as she spoke to Commander Zeftok through the translation device. They said they were going somewhere beyond the veil. Admiral Kate. Sullivan told everyone that humanity would find a new way to exist among the stars. I was supposed to stay behind and maintain communications, but now there is no one left to talk to. Dr. Kirillin questioned Maya for hours trying to understand what had happened. The young human woman could only repeat what she had heard over the communications system before everything went silent. Operation Starfall was not just a military mission, but something much bigger that involved the entire human fleet. Captain Lisa Park commanded the UES Liberty, and she was Admiral Sullivan's most trusted officer. The Admiral said they had found something in the old archives, something that would change everything for humanity. They called it the Pathway Protocol. The investigation teams spread across human space and found the same thing everywhere. Colonies with no people but no signs of violence. Research stations powered up and running but with no one to operate them. Mining operations where the equipment still worked but the miners had vanished. On the mining station Omega 7 they found Chief Engineer Brooke Martinez hiding in the deep tunnels beneath the main facility. She had been there for 5 days eating emergency rations and talking to herself. When Commander Zeftok's team brought her to the surface, she seemed confused about what had happened. The Admiral found the answer in the ancient archives. She said the Watchers left behind technology that could open doorways to places beyond normal space. The fleet did not disappear. They went somewhere else, somewhere better. Brooke's words made no sense to most of the investigation team, but Dr. Kirillin had studied ancient alien ruins for decades. She knew about the Watchers, a mysterious species that had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. Most scientists believed they were just myths, but some ruins contained technology that no one could understand. Admiral Sullivan spent years studying archaeology before she joined the military. She led expeditions to dig sites across the Outer Rim looking for Watcher ruins. She claimed she was doing research for the Earth government, but maybe she was looking for something specific. The chaos. Investigation team found more evidence on an abandoned cargo ship drifting near the Vega Nebula. Captain Nova Hayes had kept a personal journal, and her final entries talked about secret meetings with Admiral Sullivan. The Admiral had been planning something big for at least 2 years, and only her most trusted officers knew the details. Admiral Sullivan believes we can establish a new kind of empire, one that exists between realities. She says the galaxy is too small for humanity, and we need to find new spaces to grow. The Pathway Protocol will let us build cities and fleets in dimensions that other species cannot even detect. Ambassador Velnara's glow turned deep red as she read Captain Hayes's journal entries. The idea that humans had found a way to exist in other dimensions was terrifying. If they could move between realities, then no defense system in the galaxy could stop them from attacking anywhere they wanted. The most disturbing discovery came from Lieutenant Maya Collins when Dr. Kira Lin questioned her again. The research station where they found her had been studying something called quantum displacement technology. Maya had been helping to test experimental engines that could move ships through folded space. The UES Liberty was equipped with the new quantum drives. Captain Park said they could use the drives to travel to places that existed parallel to our universe. She called it shadow space and said it was where humanity would build its true home. Commander Zeftok analyzed the data from Maya's research station and found plans for engines that used principles his species had never seen before. The quantum displacement drive seemed to work by shifting matter into alternate dimensions where the normal laws of physics did not apply. If humans have mastered this technology, then they have not disappeared at all. They have moved their entire fleet into a parallel reality where we cannot follow them. They could be watching us right now from dimensions we cannot detect. The investigation teams spent weeks searching through human space, but found no trace of the missing fleet. What they did find were clues that suggested the disappearance had been planned for years. Cargo ships had been moving strange equipment to secret locations. Research stations had been studying technologies that most species considered impossible. Dr. Kira Lin discovered files hidden in the computer systems of several human facilities. The files contained communications between Admiral Sullivan and someone called the Deep Archive Project. The messages talked about preparing humanity for a great journey and establishing staging areas in shadow space. Admiral Sullivan was not just commanding a fleet, she was leading a migration. The humans did not leave our dimension by accident. They chose to go somewhere else where they could grow without interference from the Galactic Council. As the investigation continued, more disturbing evidence emerged. The humans had been secretly building ships and equipment designed to operate in alternate dimensions. They had been training their people for life in environments that existed outside normal space. Most shocking of all, they had been preparing to take their entire civilization with them. Lieutenant Maya Collins provided the final piece of the puzzle when she remembered something Admiral Sullivan had said during her last broadcast to the fleet. The Admiral told everyone that they would return when humanity was ready to reshape the galaxy itself. She said they were not running away, but preparing for something much bigger. The Galactic Council investigation teams returned to Kepler Prime, with reports that stunned every member of the Council. The human fleet had not been destroyed or captured. They had deliberately moved to another dimension, using technology that the Council did not understand. Even worse, they planned to return someday with capabilities that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Zix Thara looked at the empty star maps where human ships used to be marked and realized that the Council had been asking the wrong question. They should not be wondering where the humans had gone. They should be preparing for what would happen when they decided to come back. Scholar Quindar was the oldest living being in the galaxy, and his species remembered things that others had forgotten. The Keepers had guarded ancient knowledge for millions of years, and they rarely shared their secrets with younger races. But when the Galactic Council came to him asking about the Watchers, he knew the time for silence had ended. His ancient form moved slowly through the archive chambers deep beneath the surface of Kepler Prime. Crystalline storage devices lined the walls containing data that was older than most star systems. Quindar's 6 arms reached for a storage unit that had not been opened for 1,000 years. The Watchers were not the first species to discover the shadow spaces, but they were the first to master them completely. They built an empire that existed in 7 different dimensions at the same time. Their cities floated in the spaces between realities, and their ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Dr. Kira Lynn's antennae twitched with excitement as she listened to the ancient scholar. Her research into human activities had led her to study Watcher ruins, and now she was learning that her theories had been correct. The technology humans had discovered was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The Watchers eventually abandoned our dimension because they found the shadow spaces more interesting. They could shape reality itself in those parallel worlds and create environments that were impossible in normal space. But something went wrong with their great experiment, and they never returned. Commander Zeftak's crystal body resonated at a frequency that showed he was deeply troubled. Are you saying that humans have followed the same path as the Watchers? If that species never returned from the shadow spaces, then what makes us think humans will be different? Scholar Quindar activated one of the ancient storage devices, and holographic images filled the air around them. The images showed Watcher cities that defied understanding. Buildings that existed in multiple dimensions appeared solid and transparent at the same time. Ships that were larger inside than outside moved through space that folded back on itself. The humans found Watcher ruins in the Void Nebula, just as my records indicated they would. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the archaeological team that discovered the main archive facility. She was not just studying ancient history, she was learning how to activate Watcher technology. The holographic display showed Dr. Rodriguez's research notes from her expedition to the Void Nebula. Her team had spent 3 years exploring a massive Watcher complex that existed partially in normal space and partially in shadow dimensions. What they found there changed everything humans thought they knew about the universe. The Watchers left behind more than just ruins. They left a complete guide to manipulating the barriers between dimensions. Dr. Rodriguez found instructions for building quantum displacement engines and creating stable portals to shadow space. More importantly, she found warnings about what could happen to species that use this technology incorrectly. Ambassador Velnara's glow shifted to deep purple as she studied the ancient records. Her species had explored the galaxy for thousands of years, but they had never found anything like the Watcher technology. The idea that humans had discovered such powerful tools so early in their development was terrifying. Admiral Zixthara examined the tactical implications of what they were learning. If humans can move freely between dimensions, then our entire defense strategy is useless. They could attack any target in the galaxy and retreat to shadow space before we could respond. They could build fleets in parallel dimensions where we cannot detect or stop them. The investigation into human activities revealed more disturbing details about their preparations for Operation Starfall. Captain Nova Hayes' personal journal contained entries that showed how carefully Admiral Sullivan had planned the fleet's departure from normal space. Admiral Sullivan spent 5 years recruiting officers who would be loyal to her vision of humanity's future. She chose people who believed that humans deserved to rule the galaxy and were willing to take extreme risks to achieve that goal. Captain Lisa Park was her most dedicated follower and helped design the modifications needed for their ships to survive in shadow space. Dr. Kirillin discovered communication logs from human research stations that showed how they had been testing dimensional travel technology for years before Operation Starfall. The tests started small with unmanned probes that could spend a few minutes in shadow space. Eventually, they progressed to sending people through dimensional portals for short periods. The humans were not just planning to hide in shadow space. They were preparing to establish a permanent presence there. They built equipment designed to function in environments where physics works differently. They trained their people to live in places where time and distance do not follow normal rules. The most shocking discovery came from Scholar Quindar's ancient archives. The Watcher records contained detailed accounts of what happened to species that successfully mastered dimensional travel. Most of them eventually stopped caring about the normal universe because they could create better realities in shadow space. The Watchers tried to maintain contact with normal space for centuries. after they moved to the shadow dimensions. But eventually they found that they could build perfect worlds in parallel realities. They could create planets where their people never died, and civilizations that never faced conflict or scarcity. Why would they want to return to a universe full of limitations and problems? This information worried the Council because it suggested that humans might never return from shadow space. If they could build a perfect civilization in parallel dimensions, they would have no reason to come back to normal space, where they would have to compete with other species for resources. But Captain Nova Hayes' journal contained entries that suggested Admiral Sullivan had very different plans than the Watchers. She did not want to abandon normal space, she wanted to conquer it, using the advantages that dimensional travel would provide. Admiral Sullivan believes that humans deserve to rule the galaxy because they are willing to take risks that other species avoid. She says that by mastering shadow space technology, humans will become the dominant force in the universe. She plans to return with capabilities that will make resistance impossible. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's research notes revealed the full scope of Admiral Sullivan's ambitions. The Admiral was not content to simply establish colonies in shadow space. She wanted to use dimensional portals to move armies instantly across the galaxy. She wanted to build fleets that could attack from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Watcher archives contain blueprints for weapons that channel energy from shadow space into normal reality. These weapons could destroy entire star systems by destabilizing the barriers between dimensions. Admiral Sullivan had her team studying these designs and trying to build working prototypes. Scholar Quindar showed them recordings from the Watcher archives that demonstrated what shadow space weapons could do. The images showed planets being torn apart as dimensional rifts opened across their surfaces. Star systems collapsed into themselves as the space around them folded in impossible ways. The Watchers abandoned this technology because they realized it was too dangerous to use. Even they feared the consequences of destabilizing dimensional barriers on a large scale. If humans are planning to build such weapons, they could destroy the galaxy while trying to conquer it. The council chamber fell silent as representatives considered what they had learned. Admiral Zixathera's scales had turned almost black with fear and anger. Her species had ruled their part of the galaxy for centuries, but now they faced an enemy that could attack from dimensions they could not even detect. Dr. Kirillin processed the data through her neural networks and reached a conclusion that terrified her. Admiral Sullivan did not take her fleet to shadow space to escape the Galactic Council. She took them there to prepare for war against every other species in the galaxy. When they return, they will have weapons and abilities that we cannot match or defend against. Commander Zeftok's crystal body chimed with frequencies that expressed deep concern. The question is not whether humans will return from shadow space. The question is whether we will be ready for them when they do. We need to prepare for an enemy that can exist in multiple dimensions and appear anywhere without warning, Scholar. Quindar closed the ancient storage devices and looked at the council representatives with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. The Watchers thought they could control shadow space technology and use it safely. They were wrong, and it led to their disappearance from our dimension. Humans are following the same path, but with far more aggressive intentions. The galaxy may never be the same again. 8 months had passed since the human fleet vanished into shadow space, and the galaxy was changing in ways no one had expected. The Galactic Council faced decisions that would determine the future of every species under their protection. Counselor Hexavala's tentacles writhed with nervous energy as she reviewed reports from across human space. The debate over what to do with abandoned human worlds had split the council into 3 factions. Admiral Zixthara led the military group that wanted to occupy human colonies immediately. Her argument was simple and direct. If humans had abandoned these worlds, then other species should claim them before they returned with dangerous new weapons. We cannot let these strategic positions remain empty while we wait for humans to come back. Their colonies control important trade routes and resource deposits that our people need. Every day we delay gives them more time to prepare whatever they are planning in shadow space. Ambassador Velnara led the diplomatic faction that wanted to wait and see what happened. Her people believed that occupying human worlds without permission would be an act of war. If humans did return, they would have legitimate reasons to attack anyone who had taken their territory. We do not know what happened to the human fleet or when they might return. Taking their worlds while they are absent could be seen as theft or invasion. If they come back with advanced technology, they might use our actions as justification for conquest. Commander Beth Clark represented the few thousand humans who had been left behind when the fleet disappeared. She led civilian researchers and support staff who had no military training but desperately wanted their people to return safely. Her voice shook with emotion as she addressed the council. "These are our homes and our people you are talking about. We did not choose to be abandoned here, and we do not know why Admiral Sullivan took our fleet away. But these worlds belong to humanity, and no other species has the right to claim them." Prime Counselor Hexavala tried to find a solution that would satisfy all three groups, but the situation grew more complicated each day. Strange phenomena had started occurring in areas where human ships used to patrol. Gravitational anomalies appeared without warning, and space itself seemed to ripple like water. Dr. Kira Lin led scientific teams to investigate these anomalies, and what she found disturbed her deeply. The dimensional barriers between normal space and shadow dimensions were becoming unstable in areas where humans had conducted their tests. Reality itself was starting to break down. "We are detecting energy signatures that match the quantum displacement technology humans were developing. The shadow space experiments have left permanent damage to the fabric of space-time. These rifts could expand and threaten entire star systems." Commander Zeftok's sensors detected brief appearances of massive objects near several human colonies. The objects appeared on scanners for only seconds before vanishing again, but their energy signatures matched human ship designs. Each appearance lasted longer than the previous one, suggesting that something was trying to break through from shadow space. The most disturbing incident occurred near the Centauri system, where human researchers had built their largest dimensional testing facility. A massive energy pulse erupted from empty space and created a rift that lasted for 3 minutes. Through the rift, observers could see strange lights and structures that did not belong in normal reality. The rift showed buildings and ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The structures were larger than anything humans had built before, and they appeared to be made of materials that shifted between solid and energy states. Whatever humans are building in shadow space is far beyond anything we have seen. Commander, Beth Clark received the first communication from the missing fleet during the Centauri incident. The message was brief and filled with static, but the voice was unmistakably human. General Tara Wilson spoke through dimensional interference with words that chilled everyone who heard them. Phase 2. Complete. The arsenal grows. Earth's children will return to claim their birthright. The galaxy will know a new order. The message lasted only 30 seconds, but it confirmed what the Council feared most. The human fleet was not lost or destroyed. They were actively preparing for something big. General Wilson's reference to an arsenal suggested they were building weapons in shadow space. Dr. Kira Lin analyzed the communication and discovered that it had been transmitted simultaneously to over 40 locations across the galaxy. The humans were not trying to hide their presence. They were sending a message to everyone who might be listening. They wanted the galaxy to know they were coming back. Scholar Quindar emerged from his archives with more disturbing information about Watcher technology. The ancient records described weapons that could destroy entire species by shifting them into hostile dimensions. Planets could be made to phase out of normal space, leaving their populations trapped in shadow dimensions where they would slowly die. The Watchers developed these weapons as a last resort against enemies they could not defeat through conventional warfare. But they never used them because the weapons were too dangerous to control. Once activated, the dimensional weapons could continue spreading and consume entire regions of space. Admiral Zix Thera's military advisors developed response plans for different scenarios, but they all had the same basic problem. Normal space weapons could not target enemies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Council needed new technology to fight an enemy that could appear anywhere without warning. The waiting became harder as more communications came through from shadow space. Captain Rose Bennett's voice reached human colonies through dimensional rifts that opened randomly across their territories. Her messages were always the same, encouraging the civilians to prepare for their people's return. "Hold fast, citizens of Earth. Your families and friends are safe in the new spaces we have found. We are building something wonderful beyond the veil, and soon we will bring you home to join us. The galaxy will see what humanity can truly achieve when we are free from the limitations of normal space." Commander Beth Clark tried to organize the remaining humans to respond to these messages, but they could not communicate back through the dimensional rifts. The humans in shadow space could speak to normal space, but the communication only worked in one direction. Prime Counselor Hex Vala made the decision that would define the Council's response to the human crisis. After months of debate, she announced that human worlds would remain under Council protection, but would not be occupied by other species. The Council would wait for humanity to return and then negotiate based on whatever they had become. We will neither abandon human territory nor steal it while they are absent. If humans return with peaceful intentions, we will welcome them back as members of the galactic community. If they return with hostile intentions, we will defend ourselves with every means at our disposal. The decision satisfied no one completely, but it was the only choice that did not guarantee war with either the missing humans or the species that wanted their territory. Admiral Zix Thera began preparing defensive strategies, while Ambassador Velnara tried to establish diplomatic protocols for contact with dimensional entities. As the first year of waiting came to an end, the signs became impossible to ignore. The rifts were appearing more frequently and lasting longer each time. Energy readings suggested that something massive was preparing to emerge from shadow space. The human fleet was coming home, but they would not be the same people who had left. Dr. Kira Lynn's final report to the Council contained a warning that kept everyone awake at night. The dimensional barriers are weakening across all regions where humans conducted their experiments. If they return using the same quantum displacement technology that took them away, they could destabilize space-time in our entire sector of the galaxy. Commander Zeftok detected the first permanent dimensional portal forming near Earth's former position. The portal was small, but it was growing larger each day, and energy readings suggested it was being built from the shadow space side. Whatever humans had learned in the parallel dimensions, they were preparing to use it. The waiting game was almost over, and the galaxy would soon discover what humanity had become during their journey through shadow space. 2 years after the Great Disappearance, reality itself began to tear apart as the human fleet prepared to return. The dimensional portals that had been growing slowly suddenly expanded across 12 star systems simultaneously. Space twisted and folded as massive shapes emerged from shadow dimensions that normal physics could not explain. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice echoed across the galaxy through every communication device as her flagship materialized in normal space. The UES Liberty looked nothing like the ship that had vanished 2 years ago. Its hull shifted between solid metal and transparent energy, while sections of the vessel existed in dimensions that hurt to look at directly. Citizens of the galaxy, we have returned from the spaces beyond your understanding. Humanity has evolved past the limitations that once bound us to a single reality. We offer you a choice that will determine the future of every species under these stars. Prime Counselor Hexavala's tentacles trembled as she watched the human fleet emerge from rifts in space-time. Thousands of ships appeared in perfect formation across multiple star systems, but these were not the crude metal vessels that had left normal space. The new human ships existed in 7 dimensions, simultaneously making them impossible to target with conventional weapons. Captain Rose Bennett demonstrated the fleet's new capabilities by making her entire battle group disappear and reappear behind the Council's defensive fleet in the space of a heartbeat. The alien ships that had been positioned to defend key systems suddenly found human vessels surrounding them from directions that should not have existed. Do not be alarmed by our new abilities. We have not returned to conquer through force, but to offer advancement to species wise enough to accept it. Those who join us willingly will share in the wonders we have discovered. Those who refuse will be left to struggle in the confines of normal space. Admiral Zixathara's scales turned pure white with terror as she realized that every defensive strategy the Council had developed was useless. Her ships could not fight enemies that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Her weapons could not target vessels that phased in and out of reality at will. Dr. Kira Lynn's sensors detected energy readings that broke every law of physics she understood. The human ships were drawing power directly from shadow space and channeling it through dimensional conduits that created unlimited energy supplies. They had solved problems that had puzzled galactic science for millions of years. Commander Lisa Park's voice joined Admiral Sullivan's broadcast as she explained what humanity had accomplished during their time in shadow space. Her words described achievements that seemed impossible, but the evidence floated before everyone's eyes in the form of ships that defied reality itself. We have built cities that exist in folded space where a single building can hold populations larger than entire planets. Our shipyards span multiple dimensions and can construct fleets faster than normal space physics would allow. Time moves differently in shadow space, and we have had decades to grow while only months passed for you. The scope of human achievements became clear as more details emerged from their communications. They had not simply hidden in shadow space, but had used the different flow of time to build an entire civilization. What felt like 2 years in normal space had been 20 years for the humans in their new dimension. Captain Amy Foster, who had been a junior officer when the fleet disappeared, now commanded forces that dwarfed anything the Galactic Council could assemble. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. We have explored 17 different dimensional realms and established permanent bases in each one. Our population has grown through advanced technology that allows us to create new humans without the limitations of biological reproduction. We are no longer bound by the weaknesses that once held our species back. Scholar Quindar emerged from his archives with translations of ancient Watcher, warnings that finally made sense. The old records described exactly what was happening as humans demonstrated their mastery over dimensional technology. But the warnings also spoke of prices that had to be paid for such power. The Watchers wrote about the cost of transcending normal reality. Those who master shadow space gradually lose connection to their original nature. They become something new that may wear familiar shapes but no longer thinks or feels as their ancestors did. Commander Beth Clark led the remaining human civilians to the first meeting with their returning people, and what she saw shocked her deeply. The humans who emerged from the dimensional ships looked like her friends and family, but there was something different about their eyes. They spoke with voices she remembered, but the words carried meanings that felt alien. General Tara Wilson explained the transformation that humanity had undergone during their journey through shadow space. Her description of human evolution made it clear that the people who had returned were no longer entirely the same species that had left normal space. We have enhanced our minds to process information from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our bodies have been improved to survive in environments where normal matter cannot exist. We have become what humanity was always meant to be once we freed ourselves from the prison of single-dimensional thinking. The demonstration of human power continued as Admiral Sullivan showed what their dimensional weapons could accomplish. With a gesture from her command ship, she opened a rift in space that revealed one of their shadow space cities. The structure was impossible vast, existing in multiple dimensions and housing billions of enhanced humans. This is just one of our settlements in shadow space. We have built hundreds of such cities across 17 different dimensional realms. Our civilization now spans realities that your people cannot even detect. We offer membership in this greater community to species that prove worthy of advancement. Ambassador Velnara tried to negotiate with the returned humans, but found that their way of thinking had changed completely. They no longer seemed to understand concepts like territorial sovereignty or species independence. To them, the galaxy was simply a resource to be managed efficiently. Your old ways of organizing the galaxy are inefficient and wasteful. Multiple species competing for the same resources leads to conflict and slowed development. Under our guidance, all intelligent life can be optimized to reach its full potential without the chaos of independent evolution. The choice Admiral Sullivan had offered became clear as human ships positioned themselves around every major population center in the galaxy. Species could join humanity's dimensional empire voluntarily or be left behind in normal space while humans controlled all the resources and strategic positions. Dr. Kira Lin made a final attempt to understand what humanity had truly become during their transformation. Her analysis of their dimensional technology revealed that they had indeed transcended normal physical limitations, but at a cost that most species would consider too high to pay. They are still human in form and memory, but their consciousness now exists primarily in shadow space. Their bodies in normal space are just projections that they use to interact with our reality. They have become beings of pure information that can manifest in any dimension they choose. Prime Counselor Hexavala faced the most important decision in galactic history as she considered humanity's offer. Join their dimensional empire and gain access to technologies beyond imagination, or remain independent in normal space while humans controlled the galaxy from dimensions no one else could reach. The council chamber fell silent as representatives realized that the age of separate species and independent worlds was ending. Humanity had returned not as conquerors using force, but as gods offering transcendence. The galaxy would never be the same because humans had found a way to become something greater than any single reality could contain. Admiral Sullivan's final words echoed through space as her fleet prepared to establish their new order across the galaxy. Her voice carried the certainty of someone who had seen beyond the veil of normal existence and found humanity's true destiny among the infinite possibilities of shadow space. We are no longer bound by the limitations that once made us fear other species or compete for scarce resources. The galaxy has room for everyone, but only if you are willing to evolve beyond the primitive thinking that keeps you trapped in a single dimension. Choose wisely, because this offer will not be made again.